for more. And so for that, we have Redmi Note 5 Pro. This is the global debut of Redmi Note 5 Pro. This is the first time you'll see this anywhere in the world. And again, I want to emphasize that we don't just say we focus on India because it sounds good. We are the only company that is consistently launching new products here in India first. And so Redmi Note 5 Pro, it is also the first device in the world to come with Qualcomm Snapdragon 636 mobile platform. Yeah, the first device in the world. And again, this is the third year in a row that we're doing that. First, we did the Snapdragon 650 with Redmi Note 3. Last year, Snapdragon 625 with Redmi Note 4. And this year, Snapdragon 636 with the Redmi Note 5 Pro. So it's not just a statement. We actually launch things, new technologies here in India first. And we're really, really proud of that. So people love the performance of Redmi Note 3. And that was because it had those flagship grade A72 cores in them. So Snapdragon 636 comes with the latest Kryo microarchitecture. And for those of you who don't know Kryo, they are Qualcomm's semi-custom CPU based on ARM Cortex technologies. Now these Kryo cores are previously exclusive to 800 series phones, things like the Snapdragon 820 and the Snapdragon 835. And Snapdragon 636 comes with Kryo 260. These are based on the flagship grade ARM A73 core. And here's some of the benefits that you can see here. It has up to 50% better performance and is almost 40% more power efficient. And Kryo 260 isn't just about peak performance, it's also a huge improvement to sustained performance. So you have flagship performance for a long period of time because it's optimized for efficiency. And Snapdragon 636 comes with 4 performance Kryo cores, and this is the only phone anywhere near this price which has flagship ARM cores in it. There are also 4 Kryo cores for the power cores, which are based on 853. So you might have seen this before, but what does this all mean in practice? What do we actually get? Well, of course, we ran AnTuTu on it, and I think the results are pretty cool. So we listened. With Redmi Note 5 Pro, we are again bringing flagship grade performance to the Redmi Note series, and that's all thanks to Snapdragon 636. This completely destroys the performance of any phone in this segment. If you want performance or power, Redmi Note 5 Pro is the only phone to get. And if we compare it to the Snapdragon 625 and Redmi Note 4, it has over 59% better performance on AnTuTu. Now, 8X A53s are great, but for flagship grade performance, you need the Redmi Note 5 Pro. So last year, we talked about 14nm FinFET, and this is the reason why we avoided some other CPUs that you guys had asked us for. We spent a lot of time talking about the benefits. And so we worked with Qualcomm, and we waited for Snapdragon 636 because it has the best of both worlds. The raw performance of Kryo, along with the efficiency, thermal performance, and battery life from 14nm FinFET. So Redmi Note 5 Pro with Snapdragon 636, it has flagship DNA, and it still has 14nm FinFET for thermal performance and battery life. We worked closely with our friends at Qualcomm to make this product. Larry Paulson, the president of Qualcomm India, is here today. Thank you so much for your hard work and support. And Larry was kind enough to share this quote with us on our collaboration. We're proud to collaborate with Xiaomi for the global debut of the Qualcomm Snapdragon 636 mobile platform. Sporting our latest Qualcomm Cryo semi-custom CPU, Snapdragon 636 makes Redmi Note 5 Pro a true performance beast. Thank you very much, Larry. We totally agree, by the way. So it's the best of both worlds. And we think it's exactly what you've been asking us for. Best-in-class performance in the Redmi Note series. But we're not done with performance yet. Redmi Note 5 Pro also has up to 6 gigabytes of RAM. This is the first time ever in a Redmi series, 6 gigabytes of RAM. But it's not just about the size. We've also used the fastest type of RAM available in the market, LPDDR4X RAM. This is the same kind of RAM that you'll find in any flagship phone today. It's up to 35% more power efficient compared to LPDDR3 RAM, which is what you find in most phones in this price range. And it's 20% more power efficient than LPDDR4. So Redmi Note 5 Pro has amazing performance. Snapdragon 636 and up to 6 gigabytes of incredibly fast LPDDR4X RAM. It is the most powerful Redmi Note ever, and it is by far the most powerful phone that you can get anywhere near this price. All right, now let's talk about design. Just like Redmi Note 5, Redmi Note 5 Pro is beautiful. So we have another great product video to show you, so let's take a look at that. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I was getting some feedback there. Redmi Note 5 Pro, it's beautiful and modern. We have a similar tapered back cover to what we have in Redmi Note 5, and it curves perfectly in the edges. And if you'll notice in the demo zone, the corners are also a little bit different on Redmi Note 5 Pro. It fits really comfortably in your hands. Here's the gold version. Again, elegant gold on the back with the white front. But probably more appropriate for today, the Valentine's Day pairing of the lake blue and rose gold. Actually, personally, I prefer the rose gold version. It looks really elegant. Again, check it out in person in a little bit. So here are all four. Lake blue, black, gold, and rose gold. So that's performance and design. But the real reason why you should buy this phone, the real true power of this phone, is the camera. Redmi Note 5 Pro is India's camera beast. It's got great performance, but the camera is awesome. And I can confidently say that this is the best camera of any smartphone that we've shipped here in India. So let's start first with the rear camera. The Redmi Note 5 Pro has a dual camera. I got a bunch of claps for that in the video. It's the first time we've ever shipped a dual camera in a Redmi Note smartphone. And it's a 12 megapixel IMX486 sensor from Sony, the main sensor. And the secondary sensor is a 5 megapixel color sensor to capture depth information. The rear camera comes with the portrait mode. And while the dual camera helps, as many of you know, software is as important, if not more important than hardware when it comes to camera performance. And so we've been working on an AI-based computing engine specifically for our cameras. We have a camera team in our Me-Brain division. And for portrait mode, we use a process called semantic segmentation. This is based on our powerful deep learning algorithm. So semantic segmentation tries to understand and break down an image at a pixel level. It separates each pixel in a photo and tries to assign it to specific objects. So here, when you're in a portrait mode, there's two main objects. There's the object in the foreground, which is the person, and there's everything else in the background. And because of semantic segmentation, we can accurately determine which pixel goes where. So we know it's part of the foreground, and we can beautifully blur out the background. So let's take a look at some of these rear camera photos. That's pretty awesome, right? We started with this one because you can see the depth effect is really good. This guy really pops out in the photo. But importantly, the sensor quality shows up here in the details on his shirt. It's white on white, but you can still make out the details and the texture of his shirt pretty well. So here's another one. Again, the edge detection of our algorithm is really, really good. If you notice here, particularly around the hair and the shoulders where the image starts to get dark, it's actually still sharp, and this is because of the semantic segmentation. So the background is rightly blurred, but the important details are still sharp and in focus. Now this photo is a favorite of a guy on our team. It really matches his personality, I think. It captures this guy's fun, playful, but yet serious spirit. All right, so all of the photos I just showed you were taken without any special equipment, of course. But the thing that makes the Redmi Note 5 Pro camera awesome, and the thing I want to emphasize, is that it makes it easy for anybody to take these types of photos. And the next few photos are by me fans, not professional photographers, although some of you might be professional photographers. And they're really cool. So this photo shows the portrait mode. And it's not difficult to use, but also important to note that this is on an object. This isn't on a person. The portrait mode works well on many different types of objects. Here again is another shot to show our HDR algorithm. All of these rocks are in focus, and there's beautiful colors everywhere in the image. This next photo is, I think, my favorite. I mean, look at that photo. This looks like it was taken on a DSLR, and this was not taken by a professional photographer. And the interesting thing here is there's actually 4 people in this photo. There's 2 people over there on the left, and there's a person right behind the baby in the foreground. And yet, she is still in focus. Everything is blurred correctly. Even the edges here are sharp. It's pretty amazing. This is the power of AI-based semantic segmentation that we have in this camera. So I think this next thing you guys will like. For videos, Redmi Note 5 Pro comes with EIS. So that one, we heard your feedback. Put it in here. So now let's talk about the front camera. And actually, I think the front camera is even better than the rear camera. Yeah, this is probably my favorite. This one or the swing is probably my favorite image of the ones we showed today. But this is particularly impressive because it's taken on a front camera. The bokeh effect is really good. You have good colors, deep blacks on her hair, her dress, her shirt comes out, the reds are nice. But again, importantly, there are 2 people in this photo. and the portrait mode is applied correctly. This is a major stumbling block for many, many different cameras which have portrait modes. So how do we do this? Well, this is our first phone ever which ships with portrait selfies. And as you can see from the previous image, the results are really great. Just like with the rear camera, we use our AI-based computing engine to make this happen. But unlike the rear camera, this is done with a single camera. So the deep learning algorithms here are key. And as I mentioned, and as you all know, software is really key for a great camera. All right, so comparing Redmi Note 5 Pro to the iPhone X might seem like a stretch to some of you, but I encourage all of you to try it. Our algorithm is really, really, really good, especially if we zoom in here. Not only the edge detections, but the details, the hair, everything is just better. All right, so the Pixel 2 is considered one of the best cameras in the industry, and both of these images are good. But again, if we zoom in, while the Pixel 2 does a better job than the iPhone X, Redmi Note 5 Pro still has better edge detection, and it still captures more details in the hair. Our portrait selfie mode is really amazing. So the second problem we wanted to solve with the front camera is low light selfies, better low light photography. So we have a 20 megapixel front camera. It has a large f2.2 aperture, but it's not just any 20 megapixel sensor, it's also high quality. It's a 20 megapixel front camera, which is a IMX376 from Sony. That means we have Sony sensors on both the front and rear camera. And we combine 4 pixels into one in a process that's called pixel binning. You can see it here. The result of this is that each pixel has less noise. So I can run this one more time. And so when we combine these 4 pixels, the effective pixel size is 2 microns. It's like a super pixel, and that means that it's really, really strong in low light. Redmi Note 5 Pro also comes with an LED selfie light. And we actually spent a lot of time optimizing the color temperature. We used a 4,500 Kelvin color temperature because after consistent testing, we found that it produces the most natural, cool white light, which actually looks good on your face. So you can see how this all plays out in this photo. It's actually taken under very difficult conditions, but the selfie light and the 2 micron pixels from pixel binning make it seem like the lighting is actually good in this photo. So the front camera has great low light performance and our awesome, what I consider to be best-in-class portrait selfie mode. It gives you 20 megapixel perfect selfies. So we have some more snaps here today. Let's take a look at some of those. So we have seen a lot of photos, a lot of front camera, particularly in portrait mode, where they get tripped up on glasses. And this image is really good because it keeps everything in focus and it doesn't lose recognition just because of the glasses. So everything is sharp and crisp here. I think this one is interesting because the algorithm can actually distinguish that this dark area is not his hair, which might be a reasonable mistake. It realizes that it's a plant. The semantic segmentation can blur it out, and if you look at that line on his neck, it's actually still sharp. This photo is great. The colors are awesome, and look at the contrast, particularly of the bee's image there on her shirt. So today, we're also announcing Beautify 4.0. It's optimized through deep learning, and it's tuned specifically for India with tens of thousands of photos that we've taken here. And Beautify 4.0 works on both the front and rear camera. So normal Beautify modes typically use a single filter that applies across your entire face. But with Beautify 4.0, we went into a lot more detail. So if you actually study how people do makeup, it's never with a single brush or mask. So we spend time trying to understand what makeup artists do. Starting from things like the skin cleanser, primer, blush, there are actually 12 primary steps to perfect makeup. And we had our engineers study each step. And that's because it's not easy to understand the effects and the differences of each of these steps if you're just looking at the final result. So Beautify 4.0 can intelligently identify different skin variations and adjust the algorithm based on what it detects. So this area highlighted here is what's called the T-zone. It's typically the most oily part of your face, and that's most prone to acne and clogged pores. So again, if you're using a single filter across your whole face, it might leave behind some blemishes here or over smooth everything in the T-zone. So you can see that Beautify 4.0 does this pretty well. Here again, looking at the blemishes, Beautify 4.0 smooths them out, but not her entire face. So if we look here at this part, it smooths out the blemishes, but the rest of the face still has detail. You can still see contour lines. We can run it again and show you. So that's a key detail. It shows how powerful this algorithm is when it can recognize in great detail different parts of any image. Similarly, Beautify 4.0 works really well on eyebrows. Here you can see the typical Beautify algorithms. Because they're applying a single filter, they smooth out all the details and your eyebrows come out blurred. Whereas with Beautify 4.0, we can work around it. And unlike simple filters, with Beautify 4.0, we can make your lips look even more natural with a beautiful rosy tint. So I was talking about the tens of thousands of photos that we use to tune this here in India. And all of you know what a bindi is. But typically, these algorithms are not trained on Indian photos. And so something as simple as a bindi might look like a blemish which should be removed by your Beautify algorithm. And actually, we've seen a lot of phones that do that. So with Beautify 4.0, we can recognize the beauty on the forehead, the bindi on the forehead, and intelligently beautify the rest of the image. This also works really well with nose pins. Thank you. I think this one is also quite interesting. So because we trained this on faces of Indian men, we were able to tune it to preserve details of facial hair as well. So again, if you look at the typical algorithm, there's no detail in the beard. But if you compare it with Beautify 4.0, you can see individual details, hairs on his beard. So I'd like to give a big shout out to our dedicated camera tuning team here in India. They're the ones who made sure that the Redmi Note 5 Pro camera is top notch. If any of you have been to our office over the last few months, you would see some of these folks walking everywhere, taking photos in all different kinds of conditions. And I'm really proud to say that their hard work paid off. This camera is awesome. So that is the camera. It's the amazing portrait mode on both the front and the rear, powered by our AI-based algorithms. It's a dual camera with 20 megapixel on the front and Beautify 4.0 on both the front and rear. It's a perfect portrait. And as I mentioned earlier, I honestly believe that this is the best camera we've ever shipped in a phone here. It really is India's camera beast. So we have one more AI-based feature to show you, and that's Face Unlock. So this is the first time we've ever released Face Unlock here in India, and it's actually faster than a fingerprint reader. It's pretty cool. So our face detection algorithm scans facial features in roughly 500 milliseconds using a high accuracy matching mechanism. And Face Unlock is coming soon. It'll be released via an OTA by the end of March. All right, price. So we did some comparison to phones around this performance. And it's important to note that why we picked these phones out is that you can't find this kind of performance until you go up to phones of this price. And Redmi Note 5 Pro, it has everything. It has the flagship grade performance from the Cryo cores, 6 gigabytes of RAM, and that RAM is fast. LPDDR4X RAM, which actually the Galaxy S8 doesn't even have. And my personal favorite, it has a 4,000 mAh battery. You cannot get this kind of performance in a phone with a battery like this. If you use any of these phones, you will inevitably run out of battery, and that does not happen with Redmi Note 5 Pro. And then the camera is great. The dual camera on the rear and 20 megapixel front camera. So we have two versions. The 6 gigabyte version with 64 gigabytes of internal storage is $16,999. Again, this phone, I think if you were to compare the features, you will not find a phone anywhere like this until you get up to $35,000, $40,000. We also have a 4 gigabyte version with 64 gigabytes of internal storage. Again, DDR4X RAM, and the price of that is so that's two phones today. Redmi Note 5, which is India's all-arounder. You get an all-new design, a better camera, particularly in low light, and the same great performance and battery life, with the same great RAM-ROM configurations at an even better price. And Redmi Note 5 Pro, which again is the best camera we've ever shipped in a phone here. It has pretty much everything. We couldn't fit it on this slide. I don't know what else we could have added to this phone. And it's just $13,999 for flagship grade performance, 4 gigabytes of super fast RAM, and an amazing camera. And you get a 6 GB version at $16,999. So if for some reason you are not entertained yet, which I find highly unlikely,